title says that we are going to look at what is the missing piece in education, and just taking a few minutes to think about what this can really be. But at the same time, I would like to share that when we talk about education, the first thing that comes to our mind is learning, maybe subjects, academics, getting to know the world in some way or the other. But in this entire rush of educating the mind, what really seems to be missing out on is educating the heart. And that is what we are going to talk about today. Both Zarna and I will be sharing some of the quintessential things that are, the missing pieces in education, and yet at Akanksha, we have tried our best to integrate them. And just to begin with, we have this small video for all of you to look at. And it really brings out the entire importance and meaning of what educating the heart really means and looks like.
When a child is born, we do everything we can to protect them, nurture them, love them. A child's heart and mind are fragile. As they grow, we want to teach them everything we know. We send them to school to fill their minds with wonderful knowledge, to give them the tools they need for life. At school, they get a taste of what things are like in the world outside. There is friendship, romance, disappointment, embarrassment, discrimination, and bullying. But are the tools we give them enough to prepare them for this world? We have an enormous responsibility and an amazing opportunity. If we truly want to prepare them for the world outside, we must also educate the heart. Because to navigate the world outside with compassion, acceptance, and tolerance, we need to teach them compassion, acceptance, and tolerance. This can begin in our schools, and it can start today. It can happen at hockey practice, dance class, at day camps, and music lessons. And it's already happening around the world with astonishing results. If we want our children to grow into socially and emotionally capable young people, we must ask for a balanced education that puts importance on educating both the mind and the heart.
So, we saw how this video really talked about educating the heart. And when it comes to looking at what really does anyone, need to succeed in life, we have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we can see over here, which starts from physiological needs, anything that the body needs to even survive, whether it is air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing. Moving on to safety needs, love, belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization. But these hierarchy of needs are not just restricted to living or surviving. They are really important to also look at when we are thinking of learning as needs. And here, when we talk about self-actualization, or the step that really prepares us to be ready for learning. So when we look at a child in a classroom, we look at all of these needs and how are they fulfilled. So maybe in the classroom, you may not be able to look at whether the child has had sleep, but it is very important to consider the child even in terms of how they are seated. Have they had lunch boxes with themselves, and have they really had the opportunity to clothe themselves well. This might not seem very crucial for a school to look at otherwise, but it is very essential for a child to have in order to be able to learn. Similarly, safety needs. If a child does not feel safe in the classroom or in the environment that it is living, whether it's at home or in school, then for the child to be able to learn or to be able to really thrive becomes very difficult. And then we move on to love and belongingness, where the connections with the class teacher, with the other children in the classroom, or when it comes to the child feeling like I can do this, that I do have certain strengths, that I do get respect just the way anybody else gets. All of these become the basis, or let's say the foundation, to be able to really move to this step of being ready to learn. But the key question is that, do we need student well-being because it is a prerequisite for effective learning, or it is important simply because our children should and would you would want our children to really lead fulfilling lives? And this question is something that sets the purpose and the intent of having student well-being as a core component of education. So when we are talking about the missing piece in education, it should not be something that just equips children to be able to learn, or finds its way as the means to learning. I think for student well-being, it's very, very important for us to know that when we are talking student well-being, the key word here is well-being. And that well-being for any individual, be it a student or an adult, is extremely important to just live a happy and fulfilling life. However, we are not trying to say that it is not something you should keep as a purpose to be, the groundwork for learning. What is essential over here is to take those few seconds for ourselves and think, why do I need, or why do we need as a system, the concept of student well-being at all? Do we need it for X or for Y? What is the intention and the purpose which is driving the student well-being in whichever space that we are with children? So I think this is a question that we really would like you to take back and think about, because anything that's been shared on this platform or otherwise can all feel important, but the most important part is, why do you feel it is important? And this why will really help you to build your student well-being spaces, wherever you are. So on that note, we have a couple of things that can really help build a space for student well-being in different spaces. And what we would like to share, however, is what we have also been able to do at Akanksha. So Akanksha Foundation is actually an organization that has been around for 30 plus years. And one of the things, and we would really like to share the vision with you, but it's a network of 26 schools in Maharashtra across Pune, Mumbai, and Nagpur. And it's a public-private partnership wherein the schools are run by the Akanksha Foundation. And the aim is to really help children build the skills that are required to lead empowered lives. Um, while I'm sharing about Akanksha, going back to whichever space you may come from, student well-being really needs to be at the core of your vision or your policy. So whether today we're talking about the national education policy, or it could be your organization, your school, or your space which has a vision. And if well-being or student well-being is not at the core of it already, then that is something that really helps build that sense of purpose for each individual who is a part of that organization, a part of, let's say, the country or the group that we are associated with. And just like I shared that at Akanksha, our vision is that one day all children will be equipped with the knowledge, skills, and values that they need to lead empowered lives. And this, if you see, that it does not talk only about succeeding in life in general, or it does not talk about careers, or it does not talk about the money that you would probably earn at the end of the day. Education equips you for multiple things in life, but one of the key things that's important and that really puts you, apart from others, is being a good human being, but also being able to survive in this community by contributing to it and being able to appreciate the fact that you are a part of that community. So when we say empowered lives, it sort of encompasses a lot of these. But I would also like to share our student vision, particularly, which, as you can see, that there are these circles over here. At the core of it are the values. Like we say that, you may have all the skills that one can think of. You could be the smartest person in the world, but if you're not using that with integrity, if you're not using your own skills and knowledge for the betterment of humanity, and if it is moving towards destruction, then that's what really makes it something that binds us together, or something that would really bring in that value of being in this world. Or it can just flip the side and destruct the world, and be a harm to the humanity. So values are at the core of the Akanksha vision. And in the circle around that, which is yellow, of course you may not be able to see the words over there, but the yellow circle over there, it talks about the kind of skills that we would like to build among the children. Are these the only skills that they should be building? Not really. But there was a lot of research that went into this to find the 21st century skills, or the skills in the future that children will have to probably utilize a lot more than the other skills. And while it includes the 4 C's, the very famous 4 C's, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, one of the very critical and essential skills that is a part of our circles is compassion. And compassion again brings in a lot of understanding of how we are with people, and how are we recognizing the kindness around, so that not just in terms of being together as a community, but all the skills that we are really talking about, whether it's creativity or communication, it at the end of the day should be utilized for something that's productive. And then the outer circles, of course, move on to having digital proficiency, or knowing about humanities and health and education, certain things which are again very critical to live this life. And we are a part of this whole system where global awareness, environmental literacy, entrepreneurial literacy, all of these are also very, very, very critical, to be able to take them ahead as a child or as a person. Let's say that when we say that our children are the citizens of the country or the world, what is it that they are really bringing in while they are consumers as well? So this is the bringing in that really builds at the school level itself. So as they are moving into the outer world as adults, because they're already a part of this world, they are able to contribute as well as connect with others in a more mindful way, in a way that's bringing in a lot of value to the world. So the first point, as we have shared very critically, is that do we have student well-being a part of our policy, a part of our vision, a part of whatever's driving our organization, country, or goals ahead? And while that can be in place, what we've already seen is that sometimes policies are there, but they may not get implemented too well. And here we come to our second point, and I would like to invite my co-facilitator Zarna to take us through what this means.
Hello, everyone. So, as Dhira mentioned about the how well-being, student well-being is important. So, we talk about also in terms of how we believe in holistic development, which includes um, taking care of yourself as an individual. And that's where we start with taking care of educators, like how the well-being of educators is important. Because if I believe that my well-being is important, I will be able to take it in the classroom for my students. And for that, we do a lot of exercises, activities, events for our educators to actually build in that all the things that Dhira spoke about, whether it is called values, resilience, um, social emotional learning, all of that, which I can use it for myself as an adult, as an educator, which then I can bring in my classroom because I myself have experienced it and I have felt it to be helpful. And we all know that educators. mm life is not easy. Like there's a lot of things that we as an educator need to look into, and that's where building this and looking into our own well-being helps in working towards the well-being of our students. For which, that's where what we do is different kind of activities like uh, game as part of it, or even mindfulness. We do a lot of grounding, resourcing exercises. These all help in building our resilience, understanding it from a very scientific lens. So bringing in that for our educators and then supporting them is a very critical space and role in Akanksha that we look into. Yeah. Based on when we take our educators through it, our educators experience it themselves, that's where we take it into the classroom. And when we say into the classroom for our students, um, we say at three levels that we look at. One is at a whole school or a classroom level. Then we look at it as a small group, focused group. And then from there, we move into a one-on-one individual space. So we look at more of all the preventive spaces also and also curative spaces. So when we talk about preventive spaces is what comes under whole school initiatives and spaces, where including working with educators also, like building taking care of their well-being also, it starts from there. And that's why when we talk about whole school, I would like to name some of the initiatives and spaces that we have, which are in whole school. When we look at it, we have circle time, we have assembly, we have events, we have um, student council, we have uh, student empowerment. These are all classroom level advisory also. These are all classroom level initiatives and spaces which helps in building social emotional skills for our children. From there we move to, so in this very specific thing there are two things that we take care we are taking ahead is safety of our children, and there is a system which we follow consistently, and that has helped ensure safety of our children, which is we have a protocol in place where any kind of safety related concerns come up, we have a system where there's an email flag, people from the central team and the school team come together to work around ensuring safety of our children. That is from more curative space. Now, if we have to look at from preventive space, we have a initiative, a session called personal safety education. So this is done in the school start of the year and mostly end of the year, which is done with all students, where we ensure like we support children to understand. We have sessions for children to understand around water safety, what is safe and unsafe touch. How do you say keep yourself safe? Who are your trusted adults? And that is done not only with the students, but with our teachers and our parents. So it's a holistic thing where we want to close the loop by having each and every stakeholder be part of it, aware about what is the protocol, building and understanding what safety of a child means, and then from there we do classroom sessions to move into if there are need based group sessions, and then one on one individual sessions. And then there is quality circle time, where we do a lot of different topics. There is a progression in place, there's a framework in place, there are session plans in place, which teachers and students sit in a circle, as you can see in the center image, where they sit in a circle where we believe everybody is equal. We all need a space to share our thoughts, our opinions, our ideas, discuss them, agree to disagree. A lot of these kind of skills that are developed through circle time. And in that very space, we also do social, emotional, and ethical learning, which is a C learning curriculum, which we have adopted. This is a curriculum created by the Emory University and the Dalai Lama, Holiness Dalai Lama Trust. They have come together, which is called educating the heart. They call it that way, and that's what we also want to take it with us through this curriculum. So that is a space where we learn a lot of practices or even understanding of what resilience means, what emotions are, what are sensations, what happens, and how do we build our own capacity, our own resilience to cope with it on our day to day, in our day to day living, and how can we be more compassionate to self and to others. So these are the different spaces that we look at developing social emotional learning of our students. Yeah, Dhira. Then these are focused group intervention as per me. So say the whole school work is happening. After which there are sometimes there is a need for say some children who need a bit more of focus based on their very specific need. So here I would like to give you an example. We had focused group for only girls for self-care, where these girls have went through something related to safety. It could be either sexual abuse or any kind of safety related concerns, where we wanted them to build understanding and learn or empower themselves to take care of themselves. So it was called a self-care group. Likewise, there are boys group that is there for very specific set of group. If there is like say a lot of we see that there is either separation or grief, and there are common things as a need coming up for a small group of girls or boys. We bring them together and do focused group intervention. That's where we also do a thing called peer counseling, where we have older grades, selected 8 to 10 children who are counselors, and there are younger grades who become their peers and as a counselor, where they can actually get trained and they support the their younger classmates, as in the schoolmates, which also becomes a space where they are able to relate to each other. They know that they have gone through the same thing what I feel versus what an adult, if the adult will be able to understand or not. So that's why we call it as peer counseling, where the peers are supporting the younger grade students. So that's like more of focused group. Advisory is part of that, where we do it for higher grades like 9, 10, 10 for college preparedness and building understanding of careers, building self-awareness, self-management at what is appropriate at that age, which is like a group of 5 to 6 students with one advisor. So these are different kinds of focused group spaces. And then we move to one-on-one individual counseling, which is very specifically again need-based. If any child has gone through any kind of trauma or needs any kind of counseling support, which is very important to have it in one-on-one spaces, where we actually create a counseling room or space for that student. There are a lot of things that are created in that space, which makes the child feel safe. Reach out to the counselor whenever the child feels the need to either talk or feels unsafe or just wants to be there, so that they can talk about their difficulties or concerns and build their own capacity. Again, this one-on-one counseling space is for empowering of the student to build their resilience and to look at how they can work around different difficulties that they are facing, which becomes like a one-on-one space. So this is how we look at working at a 3 levels: whole school, that is preventive, focused group, and then one-on-one counseling space.
Thank you, Zarna. So, as we have seen that until now, three key things are important. One is to have it at the policy or the vision level. The second is to ensure that the adults around the children are also taking care of their well-being, and that is initiated by the organization, or there is something around their well-being present in the system. And the third thing we saw is directly with children when we are working. What are the different levels, elements that we can really look at, or even when we talk about mental health, for everyone to even have the awareness that there is a need to take care of the mental health. We've been all talking about physical health a lot, and while it is really essential that when children are very young, at that age itself, whether it is your physical health from with respect to nutrition or with respect to the physical fitness, in some way or the other there is some intervention that we can see from the parental level. But at the school space and also at the home space, there is a lot of scope to talk about mental health and well-being with respect to safety of children, whether they feel mentally and physically safe. While we can move to the next part of the presentation, I can see that there is already a question that has come, and it would be lovely to actually thank you for asking a question already. So we have this question that says, with the increasing prevalence of digital platforms in education, how do you ensure a balanced approach to student well-being in the online learning environment? Um, so when it comes to the older children, and especially if we are talking about digital platforms where there are just courses and people have to apply for those courses and go ahead and learn from those platforms, I think that is more curated in terms of the person or the child taking the responsibility to be able to hopefully balance out their own well-being. But what I also understand is that when it comes to, especially during the pandemic, we did face this, that yes, there was an online need to be connected on digital platforms, and we had this particular initiative called the student wellbeing calls, where our teachers used to call the students and ensure, and we literally had a cadence where every week the teacher had a couple of students that were connected to the teacher. And when I say connected, that we had made sure that each child has an adult that they can connect to, and they would the teachers would call them up, the teachers would talk to the parents, the teachers would talk to the children, and the topic of the conversation would not be around आपने पढ़ाई की क्या. The conversation would be around how are you feeling, what is happening currently in your life. And when I say what is happening currently in your life, of course it was during the pandemic, so it was very difficult for teachers to understand what's happening at the family level, what is the child going through, what does the child need at this point in time. So I think at that in during that time it was really helpful, but it would be probably more helpful if there's something else that you wanted to ask in terms of having a balanced approach to student well-being in the online learning environment. I would really say, and I think one thing that one can try doing is that the one who's facilitating a certain session can actually be very mindful of starting or ending the session with certain tips for the students or tips for the people who are joining the session, to be able to take water breaks, to be able to take a break away from the screen, to be able to connect with each other as well, because connections are very important. So on an online platform as well, if there is not just a one way thing, and if there are more interactions, then that's really helpful, just the way you asked this question and we are answering at this point. But I think what we're trying to say is interaction between the participants, between the students, also helps build a community or a sense of community, which is equally important for well-being. But Zarna, would you also like to add anything to this question, if at all?
Sure. What I understood when she asked the question is about how do you balance it. I was thinking more from like, because there's a lot of exposure to digital devices in terms of whether it's learning or overall like exposure to social media or different aspects. That's why what we do, and especially after pandemic, things were on devices and teaching was happening on devices, and now it continues. we try and do a lot of sessions with students around cyber safety, what privacy means, how do you make sure or understand about privacy, your own password, what are the things that are happening which are risky, how do you take care of yourself, or like even your personal accounts on different platforms. So these are the ways we kind of we do different kind of sessions where we can address that. So we believe that there's no way that we can now take away like devices or not have them, because they're learning a lot of things through the through internet or technology, right? Like using technology is like unavoidable, because that's now become like one of the skills that we need to learn. So that's unavoidable, but what we can definitely do is build a lot of awareness, build a lot of understanding, and help them with like um, uh, what what can be risky and how do you take care of that. Because I think through sessions and a lot of conversations is what we try and help them balance it.
Yes, we also have another question. And it says, it's nice to hear the session on education. You mentioned the importance of mental well being for teachers. How can institutions support educators' mental health and prevent burnout, especially considering the challenges they often face? That's a really good question. And I know that both we acknowledge that there's a lot of burnout and a lot of need for teacher well-being. At the same time, taking smaller as well as bigger steps for the same. So when I say that, again, at the policy level, do we have something where the teachers can take care of their health through the leave policies, or so for example, I'm just giving some examples from Akanksha itself. We have a downtime period, which means it's a 1 week period where nobody's working, and when nobody's working, then nobody's sending any emails to anyone. There's no expectation of work, nobody's calling anyone, and we saw that it's really helpful, and we had an employee well-being task force that was created to really talk about and understand what could be the various ways in which we could take care of not just the teacher well-being. Of course, it did come from there, but as an organization, we have different kinds of roles that are played. So there are counselors, social workers, administrators, and a lot of other people. So one thing is, what are certain policies that can really help them take those breaks? But at the smaller level, in our schools as well, what we do is we have de-stress corners. So there are spaces dedicated for not just teachers, all staff members in the school who can actually approach and access that space. And there are different kinds of materials kept there. There are activities kept there that can help you to de-stress for the moment. It could be some art activity, or it could be just something that you can play with at that time. It could be some games which are put to just sort of help you distract your mind. At the same time, we also have our, whenever there are groups, so whether there's a staff meeting, we would have games for teachers, or we would have these, like Zarna already mentioned, that certain tools and strategies and practices like grounding, mindfulness practices, if I may say so, like grounding, or just being able to bring to your mind a kind act, or to bring to your mind something that you're really grateful for. And these kind of practices really fill in your energy with more positivity, and they energize you really well. So each school also comes up with unique activities apart from what I have already shared. And it's just, sometimes I know that a certain school, and I can just share that they have a coffee katta. So there's this one day of the week, every week, 1 day of the week and 1 hour after the school is over, where the teachers can do whatever they want. So they don't need to work, they don't need to they can just do whatever. So there are smaller clubs. Maybe a teacher wants to run a small yoga club, so there are 3 other teachers who have joined this teacher and they are practicing yoga. Or there's another 3-4 teachers who have decided to play music. So these are the kind of things that keep happening in those spaces which we have. So these are just small examples, and there can be a lot more creative things that can be done. But hope this gave some idea or some examples of what can be done. Uh, Thank you. So I'm just going to move to the last point or part of the presentation, and which is again very critical, that when we're talking about students and children over here, while 50% of their time is spent in school, 50% of their time is spent at home. And both these together can only make a difference for them. So when it comes to the other 50%, when we say at home, it is basically considering our parents as partners, or rather, let's say that we are partners for the parents. And again, coming back to what do we do at Akanksha, firstly, we connect a lot with parents to really bring out. I'm sure every parent wants the best for their children. So it's not about telling them or teaching them how to parent the child. That's not the intention at all. But when it comes to, parents also being able to unleash that side of theirs, where they may feel a little distressed at times, they may feel that they are not doing enough for the children. But what are things in a more scientific way as well? So here you can see a picture where the nutrition, so there was a day where the parents and the children sat together and had food which was nutritious food. So there were many elements covered here. The first is that, the message that, how nutritious food helps in physical well-being. The other point was how you sit together and connect with each other over food as well, where again your connections at home, your ability to listen, your ability to be able to support, it just gets better with some of these activities, as there are insights that these parents also share when the activities are happening. So on the left, as you can see, that the parent and the child are really holding their hands, and they are, we call it building bridges, where they share something very, very personal to themselves, something that it's very difficult for us to sometimes, share with our parents. Like I can say that, if I had to say that I've sat with my mom, holding her hand and telling her what are things that I love about her, or what are things that really scare me. I don't think that I have done that in my childhood, as as something that the school would have initiated, or something that my parents would have thought can be done. Uh, but with these small activities that you can initiate among the parents and the children, it slowly, of course, gradually, slowly, and hopefully builds an environment for the child that helps. It's like a plant, right? So whether it's the sunlight or the water or the seed and a lot of other things that make it, grow and bloom, these are all the nurturing aspects that we can create for children, who can be, healthy individuals in the future. And that's what we are aspiring for, right? A nation or a place or a world where individuals are more mindful, more compassionate, they feel safe, they feel connected to each other. And we just feel that, education has a lot of power, a lot of potential to bring that in, along with the other things that are already existing. So yeah, on that note, I'd like to pause. Zarna, if you'd like to add, and if there are any questions, I know there are just 3 minutes left, but we had 2 beautiful questions being asked. Thank you for those encouraging reactions. I would actually say emojis, which are just fills our heart. I see that there are no questions as such, but Zarna, I'd like to close. Chanakya, is there anything? I mean, I believe we just have 2 minutes to
Yeah,
close.
sure. Please, if you like to conclude, please conclude.
Okay. So, Zarna, would you like to just generally conclude?
Sure, sure, sure. Thank you, Dhira. So basically, at Akanksha, uh, one thing that we believe very strongly is the child in the center, and which means not only like academic excellence, but also we look at like a lot of social emotional learning and skills that we talk about. And NEP, very specifically National Education Policy, also has now um, uh, is encouraging and promoting development of these skills, which are also called either otherwise life skills or even 21st century skills. These are very important skills, and we would want to, I mean, through what we shared today, we are trying to do our bit, and we would like to keep doing this and doing this in a more better way where we can uh, develop skills in all our children, and in that through that we are also ourselves growing. That I can totally ensure, and I feel that we are still building our own self awareness and self management through that. So, would like to encourage everybody here to do that for yourself, build compassion for yourself, and that's where we'll be able to make this a more compassionate and kind world. Yeah, thank you. I close with that. Dhira, please add.